Proposals on two new constitutional amendments have been presented. The two proposals on an amendment to the appointment of members of parliament and the powers of the president were presented as private member bills. The 21st and the 22nd constitutional amendment bills were presented by parliamentarian Vijayadasa Rajapaksa. Here are some of the views expressed in the political arena regarding these amendment bills.
The JVP Muslim Congress, the All Ceylon Makka Congress and the Tamil National Alliance expressed their views regarding the amendments. Are the two constitutional amendments, the 21st and the 22nd constitutional amendment, presented privately by Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, or are they two amendments brought forward as part of this government's policy? The 22nd amendment aims to curb the powers of the Constitutional Council and vest these powers with the President. Vijayadasa is trying to go back to the 18th amendment through this. This is simply an opportunistic and a tribalistic amendment. Our journey cannot be stopped by limiting these percentages. The true reason why Vijayadasa Rajapaksa is doing this is because he is trying to get into the good books of the President and present some amendments that will benefit the President. He is trying to get into Parliament through the national list at the next general election. Does the Prime Minister agree with the amendments brought by Vijayadasa Rajapaksa? Were the 21st and the 22nd amendments presented with the approval of the Prime Minister? He further brought the 20th amendment to the Constitution to abolish the executive presidency. Look into the past and you will see how many private members' motions Vijayadasa Rajapaksa had presented. How many of them have been successfully passed? He is just trying to portray himself as a hero. There is nothing else. But if this is the policy of the government, this is a serious matter. Anyone who is in favor of democracy should not support these amendments. I do not understand why this President's Council, expert in law Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, presented this amendment. We will definitely fight against this amendment. He is not only trying to limit democratic freedoms and rights but to vest unlimited power with the executive. The problem here is not whether Gotabaya Rajapaksa is a good president or if he is a person who would do good for the country. The general public were always of the opinion that no matter who is elected as the president, he should not have unlimited powers. No democratic minority party in the country have worked towards dividing the country or creating other problems in the country. They will not do so in the future as well. There is a healthy environment where people are beginning to live as one in a united country, and these sort of ideas are being expressed to destroy this. When Gotabaya Rajapaksa was elected as the president, we resigned from our positions and allowed him to form a government. But if they try to express these kinds of views and change the electoral system of the country, they will definitely lose. Meanwhile, the Tamil National Alliance said that they will have to analyze the proposed constitutional amendments that were presented.
MP Vijayadasa Rajapaksha's proposal was met with mixed reactions in the political arena.
In my personal opinion, it was Mr. R. Premadasa who reduced the voter percentage from 12.5% to 5% 2 days before the election in order to back the minority votes. The parliament has failed in upholding the expectations of the people. As a party, we will consider this proposal and act accordingly. It was during the tenure of former President Premadasa that the 5% inclusion was made in order for the JVP to enter the democratic process as a minority party. If this percentage is to be increased, it can be done through a discussion in Parliament. There is no problem there. We will continue to hold discussions regarding this and will investigate into the matter. As a party, we have always worked towards protecting the identity of the Sinhalese Buddhists of this country while doing justice to the other communities, and will continue to do so. The government printer has already published the proposals of parliamentarian Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa as the 21st and the 22nd amendments to the Constitution. The 21st amendment to the Constitution, published on the 30th of December, proposes an amendment to subparagraph A of paragraph 6 of Article 99 of the Constitution. According to this article, a minimum of 5% of the total votes polled should be secured by a recognized political party or independent group for a candidate from that party to be elected. Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa proposes to increase this limit to 12.5% of the total votes polled in any electorate. Through the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, he had proposed to strengthen certain powers of the President. Under the current Constitution, the appointments made by the President to the positions of Chief Justice, Supreme Court judges, and judges of the Court of Appeal and the Judicial Services Commission, including the chairman, should be approved by the Constitutional Council. However, according to the 22nd Amendment Bill presented by Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa, the President can appoint judges after, quote, ascertaining the views of the Judicial Services Commission, unquote. According to the proposed amendment, the President does not need the approval of the Constitutional Council to make appointments to senior courts. Dr. Rajapaksa had proposed for the President to also be vested with the power to remove members of the Judicial Services Commission without the approval of the Constitutional Council. According to the current Constitution, the President's nominations for the positions of Attorney General, Auditor General, Inspector General of Police, Commissioner of Parliamentary Affairs and the Secretary General of Parliament should be approved by the Constitutional Council. Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa in his amendment proposes for the President to be vested with the power to make such appointments after court ascertaining the views of the Prime Minister, unquote. The other proposals included in the 22nd Amendment Bill include provisions that state, quote, the President shall hold Ministry of Defence and any other ministry, unquote. The proposed amendment also limits the number of cabinet, non-cabinet and deputy ministers to 30. What does the 21st Amendment to the Constitution expect to achieve? On the 19th of December 1988, our country had its election to select the executive president. A proposal was made by Ashtroff to then Prime Minister Ranasinghe Premadasa, who contested the election. He asked Premadasa to pass the 15th Amendment to the Constitution if he wants to assure him of the votes of the Muslim community. Even if the main political parties win about 100 or 105 seats, they cannot get the required majority of 113 seats in Parliament without the support of about 7 or 8 MPs from minor political parties. So, because these major political parties cannot get a majority in Parliament, they become the pawns of these minority parties.
අතකොළුවක් බවට පත් වෙනවා අර කුඩා පාර්ලිමේන්තු කණ්ඩායමක 7-8 දෙනෙක්ගේ.
However, civil activists spoke out against the proposed amendments by Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa.
මේක මේ රටේ නීති ආධිපත්‍යයට කරන ලද ඍජුවම එල්ල කරන දැඩි පහරක්.
This is a serious blow against the rule of law in the country. This is a constitutional amendment that gives the President the power to appoint members of the Judicial Commission and put the entire judiciary of the country under the control of a group of brothers. Officials are to be appointed by the President based on the advice of the Prime Minister. That means the younger brother will question his older brother and make appointments to the Judicial Commission. That is what is expected to happen through the 22nd Amendment. This will enter the order paper of Parliament, and then, when it is included in the agenda of Parliament, we will challenge it before the Supreme Court.
මේක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේ අභියෝග කරන
මේ වෙලාව අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සම්පූර්ණ නව.
What we need now is a completely new constitution. We need a new constitution that can help accomplish the aspirations of the people and establish a proper state administrative system that protects the rights of the people. When that is the true need of the hour, making these additions through constitutional amendments does not help us accomplish this. This will be detrimental to what we are trying to achieve.
එකක් නැහැ ඒක හානි කරවි කියන එක තමයි අපේ මතය.
දැන් අපි දන්නවා 19 වෙනි සංශෝධනයේ ගෙනාව.
We know that the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was brought in 2015 and it was led by Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa. In a country like Sri Lanka, where there is a long-standing parliamentary tradition, he completely bulldozed the parliament unlike anything that has ever been done, even in countries like Ethiopia or Somalia. He forcibly included 38 amendments to the 19th Constitutional Amendment during the committee stage. We request the President not to amend the Constitution piece by piece. Bring a new Constitution after the parliamentary election. We request the government and the President not to do this.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඇතුළු ආණ්ඩුවෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
We have already done 19 amendments to the existing constitution of Sri Lanka. JVP, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, proposed 20th amendment to the constitution, but it was not debated in parliament. That is why the two new proposed amendments are tagged as 21st and 22nd amendments to the constitution. In Sri Lanka, it is nothing new that amendments to the constitution are brought in to satisfy the requirement of various individuals. For an example, in 1982, The third amendment to the constitution was brought in at that time to fulfill the requirement of the sitting president. In the original form of the constitution, if the sitting president wants to have a re-election for the second term, he has to wait till the end of the first term and then hold the presidential election. But the third amendment to the constitution gave him the opportunity to hold the election after 4 years in power at a time of his discretion. Now, that is quite clear that it was an amendment which was to fulfill the requirements of the sitting president. Let's take the 19th amendment to the constitution. Now, up to that point, the parliament could be dissolved by the president even after 1 year from its original sittings. But the 19th amendment barred the president to dissolve the parliament until 4 years and 6 months are gone. And then the same amendment, the 19th amendment, stated that Prime Minister has to be consulted and Prime Minister's consent is necessary to change cabinet portfolios. And on top of that, in the 19th amendment, it became extremely difficult to change the Prime Minister. Now, whose requirement is that? And it is quite clear. It was the requirement of the then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe not to allow President to change the Cabinet of Ministers and change the Prime Minister. Now, let's take the case of Honorable Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, MP, who is bringing in these new amendments to the Constitution. In the original form of the Constitution, Honorable Vijayadasa Rajapaksa should have lost his parliamentary seat by now. Why? In the original form, if an MP changes his party, then he will lose the seat. But later on, certain legal issues were brought in and certain procedures were taken into the situation, and now even if an MP changes his party, he will not lose his constituency. Now, that is not a thing which was allowed in the original form of 1978 Constitution. Now, it is clear these things are done to suit situations and suit individuals. And from 1994 onwards, there were proposals again and again to change this constitution, not amend haphazardly. Now, if the country needs to fix this constitution, and if there's a bigger requirement, study it and bring a new constitution. That is the way forward, rather than bringing in changes to fit in the requirements of individuals and individual parties.
A person who thinks he is from the Rajapaksa family are now putting forward the 21st and the 22nd amendments. Deal Dasa, through these proposals, have taken steps to monopolize the power of two parties and to destroy the minority parties. He is the master of all deals. It is as a result of these deals that he said he could not arrest anyone, and now he comes out and boasts that he protected certain people from getting arrested. The whole country is aware of this. We saw him and his family living luxurious lives in America, travelling in limousines and ships and partying with the employees of Avantgarde. The people of this country have with them the proof of these. Exposed before the country how these individuals struck deals those days. Now what has happened is that he has failed to strike a deal, and he is putting forward these proposals to strengthen the Rajapaksa family while claiming that he is one of them.